All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Difficult Conversations by Supply the Why. I'm Dean, and again, we have another unbelievable episode planned for you. And this is going to be one of my favorites because I get a chance not only to facilitate a difficult conversation, but I have the opportunity to learn and to come out better on the back end of this conversation than when I entered it. So I am joined today by a guy who has recently become a good friend of mine. He is a guy that I train with in the mornings, and he is one of the most inspirational and energetic people that I've ever met. This is Mark Chaupetta. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. I love it. Inspirational and energetic. Perfect.
So
You see me energetic at 5:36 in the morning. So 7 o'clock at night's a little bit difficult for me, but we're gonna do it tonight.
absolutely. So, Mark, what's it been? We've known each other for what, a little over a year now?
Yeah, a little over a year. Well, yeah. I mean, I think I bumped into you a few times here and there back in the old days, maybe
Mm-hmm.
over at Bishop. But yeah, a little over a year, and training at the gym that we train at, and the closeness that we all have together. It's kind of like a real Cliff Notes version of friendship. It comes on real quick, especially when you're rolling around with, like my wife says, sweaty guys.
So,
You get to know each other pretty well.
yes, yes, very, very intimately. So to put a little
Yes.
context to that, folks, Mark and I, we both train in jiu-jitsu. If you followed Supply the Why, you've heard me mention that from time to time. And what makes that small niche community even tighter for us is we do it at 6 a.m. in the morning. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're up at the crack of dawn, and we meet up, and we've gotten to know each other quite a bit from that. So just having that bond of A, being martial arts practitioners, and then B, being crazy enough to want to get up and do it first thing in the morning has made us fast friends, so to speak. So, Mark,
Yeah.
we're here to talk a little bit about the journey that you and your sons have been on through through a very rare form of muscular dystrophy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's like, where do you begin? I'm the executive director of the Wheelchair Strong Foundation. We've only really been in existence for about 3.5, 4 years, I believe. But I've been advocating and raising money for Duchenne's, or DMD, as we can kind of call it, going forward, since my sons were diagnosed, and they were diagnosed unusually, different circumstances than most. Most families have a diagnosis of Duchenne muscular dystrophy at 4, 5, 6 years old when they're child's, typically boys. It's pretty much a male-related disease, although there are a few rare cases of females that actually have it. And I can't get into the science end of it because I just kind of struggle with that whole part of it. But there was a family history in Troy and Andrew's mother's family. We were made aware of that when the twins were born. We went for genetic testing. And then, 2 weeks later, the nurse came into the hospital and gave us the devastating news. So I've been fighting it for, they're 25 years old, amazing young men. I've been fighting it with them, with the family for 25 years. I really haven't stopped, since then. So where most people get a diagnosis around 5, 6 years old because their son is tripping and falling and having difficulty hitting some of those milestones as a young child should have.
I mean, like walking and things like that. Those kind of like walking, running,
falling, yeah, an unusual gait. It's called like a Gower's movement. It's like a gallop when you walk. And then they go in to the doctors, and they usually test them for Duchenne's, and the rest is history. We knew at a very early age, birth practically, that my sons were going to grow up, and I knew from day one that they were going to especially as a parent, these healthy little beautiful boys. I knew someday that they were going to stop walking unless something happened medically. So yeah, it was definitely a challenge.
So
Especially
can
as
I
a
ask?
young adult. I mean, I was a young kid. We had my their mother, my ex-wife, and I, who were we're great friends to this day. We're in our early 20s. I think now I have children that are in their mid to late 20s. My oldest child, my daughter Elizabeth's 27. So I think I had her when I was 23, 24 years old. So I was a baby myself. So being emotionally equipped to tackle that was certainly a challenge.
So, Mark, while you're on that subject, can you circle back to what was that conversation like when the doctors came in? You said after 2 weeks to tell you that your son's suffered from this. I mean, like, how did you even process that?
Yeah, you know what? Just second by second, minute by minute. It was denial. A lot of different emotions go through your head when you get a diagnosis like that. Because it's so conflicted because you're looking at these precious, healthy, little babies that don't seem like they're sick, but they are. And then, and then and I admit, and it's something I've lived with my whole life and something that I struggle with my whole life. And I have some dark moments in my life that, being a young person, knowing, dating and marrying my son's mother and, learning, well, kind of hearing that there was some sort of an illness in the family, but not knowing what it was because there was nothing in my face. And then and then finding out that there was a history in their family of this disease, which prompted us to go have them tested, was kind of a shocker. When you're young, you're young and dumb, and you're filled with piss and vinegar, and you don't even care. And then all of a sudden, you grow up really fast when a nurse walks in and says that that your sons have this disease, and then you start researching the disease, and then you start seeing what it's really about, and then it kind of hits you over the head. So
I
yeah,
hear
it puts
you.
strain on a marriage, strain on everything, a lot of different emotions.
So, when did you start seeing the Duchenne start to take effect and it starting to manifest itself in their lives?
Um, Probably 6, 7 years old.
When they
Slowing
were
down,
6 or 7
walking,
years old?
struggling to get up a step. Make it up to a second step and a third step, things like that. That getting up off the ground. So you kind of project how things are going to go, and things have advanced so far medically, especially with this disease. And I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but when they were diagnosed, you're searching for organizations and people, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, this person, that person that can just give us any kind of information to make us feel better. You know what what's down the road medically? Is there going to be a cure, treatment, whatever the case may be? And back in the early 1990s, when they were born and diagnosed, there wasn't much there. There wasn't a lot of hope. There wasn't a lot of optimism. So that kind of put our marriage in a difficult spot. Their mom and I ultimately ended up splitting up, which it is what it is. It happens to a lot of people no matter what. But that put a strain on us. And it's funny, a mutual friend of ours, and I tell the story to a lot of people. After the kids, mom and I split up. We already had a toddler. My oldest daughter, who just got married, was 27. Then the twins came along 2 years later. When we split, I went and moved into an apartment like any young 20-something-year-old kid would do if he's getting divorced, and kind of sunk into a depression and wasn't myself, and a good mutual friend of ours who you had on last week briefly, Frank Brack, from Brack's Tap and Grill. He's pretty much the one that grabbed me by the back of my hair. I had hair back then. And, and said, what, get off your, I promised you before the show I wouldn't curse. So get off your tuchus and start doing something with yourself. Stop gloating. Stop being so depressed. Stop being so upset, and do something about this. So I still have the newspaper clipping in my office, and it's actually the picture that's on the top of our website at wheelchairstrong.com. A picture of me and holding the two kids, the twins, when they were little. That was our first media story in the Brockton Enterprise when they were like 4 or 5 years old, and from then on, I've pretty much been a wrecking ball.
So when he said do something, what were some of the first steps you started to put in place that that ultimately led to Wheelchair Strong? Because I'm sure at first you're like, do something. Your first thought wasn't like, okay, I'm going to start Wheelchair Strong. Like there must have been
no. I mean, Wheelchair Strong didn't come for 20, almost 20 years later. I think anyone or any person that has something in their life, if something hits you like that, you just want to feel like you can do something, even if it's just holding a can in front of a, a supermarket and collecting money, or just, me personally, I started with just a few small local, benefits and fundraisers and things like that. And I always try to do things even before I started my foundation that brought some sort of an entertainment value or something fun for the kids. I remember when the kids were little, they were really into the WWF. So I hired WWF wrestlers and I rented the high school and I wrestled myself and, raised money that way. So I always try to do something that, the twins always wanted to, they were really into sports, and that I think that's probably one of my biggest regrets in life is that, when we fast forward to this interview and we start talking about what they're involved in now with the USA team in power soccer, when they were little, they were very rugged, athletic, tough kids. They're twins, beating the snot out of each other and just typical boys, and I kind of purposely held them back from, playing little league or doing t-ball because I knew in my head what was coming, so I've always felt guilt for not doing that or getting them involved in sports. So we would play sports ourselves, in the backyard and they had ATVs when they were like 6 driving around in my backyard. And, I felt guilty that they never got to be on a team. So I organized a whole baseball tournament and, and got them uniforms and, you just do what you can as a parent, survival mode, and you just try to, do the best you can for your kids and then show them that strength, and weakness at the same time.
So, Mark, let me jump in real quick. So, you talked about wanting to involve them in sports and activities.
Yeah. Mhm.
What was organized? Was there a lot that was organized back then, or was it? Did you really have to dig deep to try to find things that were right for them?
Well, I mean, they were always baseball fans, and they didn't really press me too hard when they were little to play sports because I think they innately just knew that they were different anyways. Because the doctor's appointments were, from the very beginning, from the very start. We had to set up doctor's appointments with physical therapists, neuromuscular doctors, pulmonary doctors, cardiologists, everything. It's been a process their whole life to it's kind of like owning a car and you have to just keep that maintenance going. And you can keep an old car forever if you take care of it. So Troy and Andrew are getting older, so I plan on keeping them forever because I've been I've been doing a heck of a lot of maintenance. I've been changing the oil on those two kids for 25 years of their life, pretty much every day, to keep them here and keep them happy and motivated. But yeah, I mean, baseball, soccer, little league, things like that kids did. I didn't really put them in those sports where kids don't put themselves in those sports. Their parents do when they're 4 or 5 years old. So I never really did that. But they ended up growing into these huge, sports fans. So later in life, when wheelchair soccer came into their lives, it was a blessing for all of us, but we can touch on that, I guess, in a little bit. But so
I think this is a perfect opportunity since you brought it up.
All right. Well, there we go.
Let's tell people. Let me show people exactly what that is. I have a quick video that I want to show people so they get a visual of what you're talking about, and then we'll circle back and we'll talk more, and you can put some meat on the bones as to what it is and really how high of a level Andrew and Troy have reached. So everybody stand by. I'm going to show a quick video, and we'll give you a little bit of understanding of what Mark's talking about here.
The evolution of power soccer has been incredible. It's been crazy.
It is the fastest growing adaptive sports program in the country.
You know, it takes real skill.
As long as you're disabled and you can drive one of these wheelchairs and you have the aptitude to play this sport, you can play.
I always had that competitiveness, and I love to watch sports on TV, so I wanted to do one that I can do by myself.
You know, it kind of transcends the restriction of the chair.
This is a real sport.
It's cool to have fans watch you. Last year, one of our games went to like triple overtime. The level of competition is a lot higher when you go to the national tournament because it's the best team and you want to come out of there with the first place trophy.
Troy and Andrew winning the national tournament a couple years ago, it was really cool.
The whole gym surrounded our game and they were cheering for both teams. I think that was one of the coolest moments of going to nationals. Having all of those players in the higher division, having the Team USA coach watch us.
I never thought that I would be on Team USA. Never thought that I would have the independence that I have now.
If I make Team USA, it would be a really good accomplishment. That's my goal right now. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to play for the national team. My goals as a power soccer player was to one day be the goalie for Team USA and also to be known as one of the best goalies in power soccer and hopefully help them win another gold medal in 2021 in Australia. One of the best goalies in power soccer.
Pretty cool.
It's a powerful video, Mark. It's real.
Yeah. That's one of my Wheelchair Strong or my productions that I kind of came up with the idea and to do a film on power soccer, and we're actually just wrapping it up now. It was we went into production about two years ago. And it's funny. I look at my youngest son Max, who's being interviewed in it, and he's since hit the big P word there that teenagers hit, and doesn't look anything like that anymore. But I guess just to digress, a little bit, and then we'll get into that, just so people know that, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, it's a neuromuscular disease. It's a muscle wasting disease. They lack a protein called dystrophin in their body. And, like I said, I'm not going to get into the genetic side of it because I'm not very good at articulating that. But so they stopped walking around, so all kids with Duchenne's start off looking healthy. They start declining around 5-6 years old. By the time they're, I'd say anywhere between 10 and 14, depending on the kid, end up in wheelchairs. And then typically by the time that they're 15, 16 years old, 17 years old, they start to lose, some of the upper body function with their upper body strength, feeding themselves, toileting themselves, things of that nature. And most boys with Duchenne's are in wheelchairs full time from, 14 years old onward for the rest of their life. You there, Dean? I don't see you.
I'm here, man. What you're saying now is worthy of the full screen. So I'm just gonna
like looking at myself. You're
a handsome guy, and I'm sure everybody wants to see you. But seriously, Mark, keep going, man. I'm gonna jump out. This is all about you and Andrew and Troy right now. Keep going. You were saying?
No, I mean, where did I leave off? So I'm just trying to kind of paint the picture a little bit. So, I think one of the most difficult things for me as a parent, and I think all parents, is that they, especially my sons or kids with Duchenne's, they start off being like everyone else, running around, playing, tackling kids, doing everything that little boys do. And as I got older and stopped, walking and had to transition into a wheelchair, now that it was, and a lot of parents, and I counsel a lot of people that have children with this disease in various stages, will struggle to want to put their kids in a wheelchair because they don't want to have, becomes more of a selfish thing, where they don't want to see their kid in a wheelchair. But putting a kid in a wheelchair when they're struggling for years to walk, and then giving them that new independence is a pretty magical thing for them, especially the chairs that they have nowadays. They're all souped up and do all kinds of crazy things.
Mark,
So
can I have you clarify that something? Can I have you clarify that? So you said
sure.
You said it was a struggle for the parents to even make that decision in the first place. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So talk a little bit about the struggle to what's going through your head when you're struggling to even make that decision. Like why is that? What made it such a difficult struggle?
Because nobody wants to. It's just the whole stigma that goes, I guess, behind someone being in a wheelchair, And sorry, I'm patting my dog as I'm talking. There is a stigma with it, and I think maybe sometimes it's a selfish stigma when you're thinking more about yourself and what people are going to think or say, and you're not really thinking about your children. So for me, and that was one of my battles with. No way am I being derogatory, but that was one of my battles with mom, their mom. And, moms are moms, moms, moms are a different breed than dads, and I'm a little bit more of an aggressive type of a father, but, she didn't really want to accept it, which I understood. But kids with this illness, it makes more sense to go into a wheelchair to preserve your muscles that you have left, because it's a muscle wasting disease and they atrophy. It's better to put them in there and not have them struggle or strain or trip or fall, potentially hurt themselves. I put them in wheelchairs at a fairly young age, and it gave them a new sense of independence. At school, whatever, we adapted. We bought a van. We figured it out. We put a ramp in our house. It is what it is. It's fight or flight. And for me, it's always been fight. I tried to flight a little bit in the very beginning, but then I became a fighter. And I think that's made a difference in my kid's life, seeing how crazy that dad can be. So that whole transition into wheelchairs and then seeing their friends starting to grow up and do things that they can't. I remember it vividly, and it's probably one of the reasons why I sold the house that they lived in growing up, and kind of went to a different place. And is that I used to watch them sitting in the picture window, just staring at the kids running around out front and in the outside, and not coming to knock on the door and want to hang out with them anymore. So there's different stages, and and I never blame their friends, because they're kids, and it's hard for them as well to see their good friends have to change, and they don't know how to cope with it or deal with it. So, you can't slight kids.
No, you can't, Mark. Can I just talk about that?
and then,
Mark, really quick? Yeah. That's one of those nuggets
that
makes this so important, because that was a huge mind-blown moment for me when you just mentioned that aspect of there they are, they're sitting in that living room window, that picture window that a lot of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s were in houses that had something like that, and having them sit and watch their friends play and wonder why they can't be out there, why me, that can't be out. That had to be heartbreaking as a parent to have to watch that, maybe even have to explain it to them. I'm sure. Were there ever times where they asked, how come?
Yeah, we're always a pretty open and fluid family, conversation wise, and yeah, no, absolutely. When it's one of these diseases that it's physical, like they don't, and I'd say to myself sometimes, well, if I was gonna have to have disabled children, it might have been easier if I had a disabled child who cognitively wasn't there, so they wouldn't know, what's wrong with them, so they wouldn't feel that pain, and having kids that had to, watch themselves deteriorate and see things change and be bright and smart, it makes this disease that much more, vicious. And, so that was always tough, and we still go through that today, to this day, and they go through it. And Christ, they amaze me. They're super strong, and and as a parent, you also have to balance that that strength with that weakness, and that was always kind of a struggle for me. I've learned, I think, as I've gotten older, to be a little bit more, sensitive to things, and show my vulnerable side. So it was tough. It's tough, but to take something positive. When they were 12 years old, someone in our organization said, "Hey, there's this really cool sport that's growing for disabled kids. It's called power soccer." And they had a recreational team at the Massachusetts Hospital School in Canton, which is like a state facility. Kids with all different types of illnesses live there, but outside people could come in and play. So I brought them there to check it out, and
how old
fell in love
were
with
they
it.
when you brought them there, Mark? How old were you how old were they with Troy and Andrew when you?
Oh God, they're 20. I think they've been playing. They're 25. They'll probably tell me that I'm wrong, but I think like 13 years old, maybe like 8th grade or something. And and what you saw in that video, or people saw in that video, those are pretty high-tech chairs. Troy and Andrew own their own power soccer chairs. They took their own loan out. Those are $8,000 a chair.
Wow.
When the sport started, they were using their own personal wheelchairs, and what we were doing was putting little plastic crates in front of them, and we'd screw them into the foot plates, and then the chairs were overheating, and insurance companies weren't fixing them, and it was a nightmare. And then this company in Minnesota called the Power Soccer Shop, as the sport was evolving, invented this sport chair, and the sport chair was a game changer, for these kids, where eventually now everyone in the sport, and there's hundreds of wheelchair soccer players. You're welcome, Michael. There's hundreds of wheelchair soccer players in the country, and thousands in the world. It just became an elite sport, and to see, and I knew they were going to be great athletes, because even just kicking the ball around in the yard as kids, they just had the it factor. Some kids just have that it factor when it comes to sports, so that also beat me up as a parent, knowing that, oh my God, my kids are like great athletes, and I know they're going to stop walking. And I know that, I didn't put them in a sport. And if I put them in a sport, and then they start having difficulty, and then they have to leave the sport because of their illness, it's that struggle, that internal struggle you're having with yourself as a parent, where you're, I didn't put him in the sport to protect him, but then, was that the right choice to make as a parent? You ask yourself that all the time. But power soccer, they were in their world. They were amongst themselves. They were amongst, and these aren't all just Duchenne kids. This is sport that's male, female, all different disabilities. As you saw in that video with Nate, the gentleman in the green outfit, he broke his neck and got some sort of viral infection or something, and ended up in a wheelchair later on in life. So it's all different disabilities. And then the twins just rose to the top. Like, they just became two of the best players in New England. Then they're like, Dad, we want to make Team USA someday. And I'm like, okay, I never discouraged it. If you want to make Team USA, you make Team USA.
Tell us more about that
conversation.
conversation. Mark, tell us more about that conversation. That must have been an unbelievable conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I never doubted them, because they were always so good. But we started competing in the national tournament, going out to Indiana. Now, let's freeze frame this for a second, because they're 25 years old. You're right. Most parents that have 25-year-old kids, are done with sports unless they're a pro. And so they're technically professional athletes to me, because it requires a lot of travel, a lot of time, a lot of commitment. Now that, so 2 years ago, prior to, actually a year and a half ago, October of, oh God, it's when Joe Lozon was fighting in the Garden. I know you were at that fight. So whenever that was,
a couple of years ago, we'll call it.
I was in Minnesota,
Mhm.
and they got invited to try out for Team USA. So they both got invited to try out. So now we're in the dilemma that one could make it, one may not make it.
Ooh.
So that became a problem, for me, and I'm like
Well,
going back.
what was their thought process about that? I mean, because clearly Troy and Andrew are both intelligent kids. For everybody that's
Yeah.
out there, like I've had a few conversations with Troy and Andrew unrelated to this
Mm.
show, and they're both
Yeah.
very intelligent. So what was that like with the
They
reality
claimed
that
they
one could
they
make it?
claimed they were gonna support each other, but they trash talked a lot. I'm gonna make it, you're not gonna make it, And for me as a parent, I'm like, oh, so when I remember when it was like getting the phone call that, your wife's going into labor or something. And it's like, they got the phone call, and I was here in my home in Carver, and they were at their mom's at the time in Brockton, and they both called me like, we both made it. So I hoofed them out to Minnesota to try out for Team USA. So there's a lot of travel. We're going to Indiana in April. We resume practice. So we were supposed to be in Australia this October 2021 for the World Games, and COVID ended that, so now it's pushed to 2022. So now we're resuming practice again. And every 3 months I have to take 2 kids and 4 wheelchairs to Indiana to practice. And it's not an easy proposition, let me tell you.
I'd imagine it's not. I assume that you're driving out there when you do that too. That's not like, hey, let's jump on a plane.
We flew the last few times to Indiana. We flew, which is a struggle, and it's to me, my wife would rather me fly because she knows how I am as far as driving and getting tired. So, but this time I rented a van and we're going to drive out. But me, I'm best at 5, 6 in the morning. So we'll be hitting the road pretty damn early, and they can just sleep. But but now my youngest son Max is 15. He's taller than me, and he's at that age now where it's a family thing, and he's now a helper. So he raised his right hand and I deputized him.
Mark, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges with flying? So, and the reason for that is a lot of us as parents, we complain about bringing our kids that don't suffer from any of these afflictions on flights, because sometimes it's closed. Kids can be a pain in the butt sometimes when they're closed in spaces. So, what are some of the additional challenges that you're facing with Troy and Andrew?
Well, I mean, for anyone in a wheelchair, it's a challenge, and it'd be nice if airlines would adapt their planes for people that are in wheelchairs. And so for them, we have to get in there extra early. They use a transfer chair. You transfer from one of those chairs, bring them in, and we get transfer them onto the seat. And then they bring their wheelchairs underneath the plane, and that's the most stressful thing. And anyone that's listening to this that travels with someone that has a wheelchair will understand that. We'll be sitting on the plane because they board us first, and we'll be sitting on the plane, and then I'll be looking out the window watching the crew struggle to get their chair on that little conveyor belt. These are $50,000 chairs. These are their legs. That's like taking my legs off or your legs off and handing them to someone and say, well, give them back to me after and hopefully, no one drops them or steps on them or kicks them or whatever. Like, these are their legs. So that's, it's a struggle. It's anxiety, but it's, it is, it's worth it. But plane seats aren't comfortable for kids. The people or adults, I shouldn't say they're my kids, but they're adults. But but sitting in a wheelchair, you have everything that kind of keeps you compact. You have your side laterals, you have everything that keeps your hips and your legs straight. You get to sit on a plane, now all of a sudden it's uncomfortable for someone. So how the heck we're going to do going to Australia? Like, honestly, I have no freaking clue. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's what I tell the kids, let's get through COVID. Let's get the Team USA training done. And, if I have to drive you to Australia, I will, even though there's water involved.
So Mark, this is a perfect segue. There's a question that we have another viewer that is also a Duchenne's mom. So Erin wants to know how COVID has affected the boys' training.
Oh, COVID halted the whole season. The season was canceled. The whole soccer season was canceled, and USA training was canceled for a year. We're just finally getting back into USA training, um, and yeah, and it really stunk. It stunk for these kids because they look forward to it, and it was lousy for us parents because we've become a family. Like I'm family with even your children. All they play sports and cheerlead sports. It's I miss them. I miss everyone, and you know, I regret complaining that maybe I have to travel or this or that. But
Sure.
it's funny. The kid we'll go on like a 14-hour ride to Indiana, and I'll start complaining that gosh, I've been sitting so long, and my kids would be like, "Really, Dad? We sit all the time." Yeah. I'm like, yeah, point taken, So
little hot sauce and ketchup on that foot, Dad. Before you put it in your mouth.
yeah, we have fun. We it's I don't know. I think everyone with this disease, I think everyone that's disabled, they're all special, and their families are special, and people just tackle it, different ways. When Troy and Andrew were diagnosed, and I was shuffling and stressing out and wanting to raise money. I was flying around the country to go to seminars and conferences. And then I just thought to myself, that's not for me. That's not that, it's for some people, but it's not for me. Like, it's not for me to go to Washington, D.C. and talk to lobbyists or whatever. It just wasn't my thing, and so I channeled my energy, and everyone's got a purpose, and there's people that need to do that. But for me, it was, kind of come back home, be home all the time, be involved in their lives, and get them involved in things, and keep them motivated, and keep them positive, and keep them knowing that just because they're disabled doesn't mean they can't achieve whatever they want to achieve in life.
Well, fair enough. So there's another question for you. So Mike
Yeah.
has a comment and then a question. So he says,
Yeah.
seeing my father with no legs in a wheelchair, be able to drive
Mhm.
a car, take karate, play basketball, inspired me. How does seeing your sons play sports inspire you? This is a great question, because I'm expecting big.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, so my oldest child, Elizabeth, she's 27. She was into dance. I know you're listening, Elizabeth, but aside from your 20 minutes, oh, torture growing up. Yeah. Well, you know how recitals are, like 6 hours, and you're just waiting to see your kid.
Hey, this is all
and,
you, brother. My name's Bennett, and I'm not in it. This is your thing.
Yeah, right.
I got two
Right.
daughters.
And then my youngest son, Max, is more like, a version of me. He's very artistic and not into this. We tried the sports when he was younger. I coached wrestling when he was younger, but he's more into the piano and the arts, which is amazing. Troy and Andrew, well, when they started playing power soccer, oh my God. It is the most. My daughter's comment said something right now. She's laughing. I can't even see him.
Yeah, that's her laughing at
Yeah, she's laughing at me, Elizabeth. Yeah, amazing, amazing. It's absolutely the most. Like, I can't even put it to words. It's you got to come to one of these tournaments. Like, they are so exciting, and and you know what? When you're there, Dean, like, you don't look at anyone like they're disabled. They're just people, and they're playing a sport, and they're competitive, and it's just it's a beautiful thing to watch. And then I think I've spoken about this lots of times on many news outlets and media outlets, that we've done interviews, and everyone and we talk about it in my film Power that will be out soon, is that everyone thinks, oh, your kids play wheelchair soccer. That's so cute. Yeah, well, you know what? Come watch it, and you'll realize it's not cute. It's competitive, and they're out for blood, and it's a real sport, and it's world level, and it's world class. There is equivalent of little league version of wheelchair soccer. Some of the ones that start out, but when you get to the level my sons are at, it's the major leagues, and it's pretty cool. I'm proud to say I have professional athletes. Like, my sons have more athleticism in their pinkies than I have in my whole body. Like, it's crazy.
Well,
I say that with pride.
Well, I know you say it with pride. And speaking of that pride, since you didn't bring this up when Mike asked you this question, I thought that this was going to come up, so I'm going to bring it up. I have another video that I want to show of something that you did that motivated you to do something that most people would think that you're insane for doing. So check this out, folks. All right, you're not going to want to miss this part.
My kids fight every day. They lack a protein in their body called dystrophin.
So it's a long-term gradual decline in motor and muscle function.
They're fighting the ultimate fight. Me fighting, getting in the cage, getting the shit kicked out of me, that's nothing compared to what my sons go through. They fight every day. They have to fight physically, they have to fight emotionally. It's a struggle. It's a struggle for all of us. When I decided to fight many years ago for my kids and for my cause, it started off as a challenge. Then the challenge turned into something that I needed to continue to do, to raise money, to raise awareness, but also, for myself and for my own inner strength and conviction. I need to do certain things, I guess, to be able to sleep at night and be able to have the strength to, take care of them, have the strength to advocate for them. And I don't do traditional shit, as everyone knows. Everyone that knows me, everyone that knows Mark Chaupetta knows that I don't go out and, have bingo tournaments or fucking golf tournaments. That I go out and either get the shit kicked out of me in a cage fight or bring in some of the top comics around the world to entertain.
Getting in the cage, he's out of his mind.
Honestly, I'm not okay with Mark getting back into a ring. It's ridiculous.
At 49, the training becomes more difficult, the recovery becomes more difficult.
No, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all for Mark. But I say go for it, Mark.
I think Mark is crazy. He's doing it for Duchenne's, and I think, screw it, be crazy.
Father's fight, it means everything. It's having the strength and the energy to wake up every day and take care of my kids. It's having, keeping myself alive emotionally. But maybe after this, a father's fight is irresponsible. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
That is awesome. So let me get Mark back in here. And like I promised you folks, he undersold it. When you asked what inspired him, he undersold it. He kind of left that little nugget out, that huge nugget out, that you are so inspired and you are so enthusiastic about your sons that you are willing to put yourself in the ultimate version of harm's way. So, Mark, I usually never have to tell you this. I usually never have to tell you to talk, but you got to talk more about that, man.
Right. No, I know, and I'm calling out because before we went on the air, viewing audience, Dean knows I have a little bit of a potty mouth. He challenged me to, see if I could go the whole show without swearing. Well, technically, I didn't swear. The character that was in that swore. It wasn't me. So I've been a good boy. But no, Father's Fight's another one of my crazy visions, that I've had. Why am I frozen? There we go.
Good,
yeah, it was one of my visions. I wrote it, directed it, and co-starred in it because my kids were the stars of it. My daughter and my wife, who thinks I'm crazy. And I was 49 when that was happening, turning 50. Now I'm going to be turning 52. So we won. We won. We were semifinalists in New York International Festival, which I'm proud of. I used to fight, in the was back. Oh God, many years ago. Well, you do a radio show at WXBR, WBET in Brockton. The On the Mark show. It was like a private eye show.
Mark, you still with us? You froze up a little bit there. You still with us?
One of Stoughton's. Yeah, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Yep.
You good? You're frozen.
Yep.
Yeah, so one of Stoughton's own came on my radio show, Mike Varner,
Who was in the video? He was in that video.
Challenged me to. He said he. Yeah, right. Mike came on my show, challenged me, and said that he would donate money to my charity if I fought, and I was on air. I memorialized it. I said I would do it on the air. So what the heck? So I did it. So I used to fight every year to raise money for the kids, and I decided to make it into a film. And and everything I do for with these events, the twins are in my family is involved, and they're very talented young men, and so they assist me, and again, it gives them something to do and keeps them motivated, and I don't know, you feed off people. If they see me doing things, it's motivates them to have a better outlook in life, and
Mark,
is what it is, man. I'm I'm
well
retired,
said,
but
I was going to say, well said on that, because it's definitely it seems like you're feeding off each other. You're feeding off Andrew and Troy, and the energy and the passion they have for their power soccer. They're feeding off you, that you're willing to go in there and, as you said, get get the mess beat out of you in a cage just to prove a point. Like for what your sons go through and the discomfort that they have in their everyday life. What is essentially 9 minutes? If you make it the full 9 minutes of discomfort, well, like what is that compared to what they go through for the part of 25 years?
Well, I'll share two quick stories with you before we wrap up, because I'd like to get into what the kids are doing now. But when I was filming that movie, I was called by a Hollywood production company, a TV show called 60 Days In, which is an undercover prison show. And me being a licensed investigator by trade, they asked if I'd be interested in spending 45 days in a prison down on the border of Mexico. And I said no at first, and then they kind of persuaded me with the amount of money they offered me, and I figured it would be a way to bring great exposure to the charity, and the kids kind of pumped me up, and they said, "Dad, you can do it, you can do it," and they're always so supportive of me. And I went through the whole process. I flew down to Arizona, spent like 4 days in a hotel before I actually was going undercover as a it was an A&E show, if anyone's seen it. And they just berated me with questions and all that B-roll and that tug on the heartstrings. And, are you afraid to go to jail? You're an ex-fighter and a, detective and this and that. And I'm like, look, to quote like Creed in that movie Creed, or Rocky was talking to Creed, and he's like, take a look in the mirror, young man, because that's always going to be your hardest fight in life, is yourself, so I'll go at it with anyone, that, Dean, just from knowing me in the morning. But my toughest opponent is the stuff inside my head, so by the time I was getting ready to go undercover, I get the twins breaks down, and my daughter was taking a huge doctor's appointment trial, and I'm just a mental mess. And I get in there, and I'm locked down. I get into jail. Again, TV show. I didn't commit a crime, and I lost my bleep after one night. I couldn't be away from him. I said, get me out of here. I couldn't do it. Like my head started talking to me, and I'm like, this was the wrong reason to do it. This isn't part of the fight. The fight's back home. And, I incorporated that into my film is what I'm getting at. But, it was a tough experience, for my big one night in jail. It really messed me up.
But Mark, that just speaks to the type of heart you have, that you were able to pass on that opportunity, which could have been a good opportunity for you to springboard more film type stuff. It could have been something good for you personally, but you were too big of a man to let something that maybe might have been good for you overshadow your duty and your mission as a parent. And I for one, I take my hat off to you for that, Mark. I mean, that was what you go through and what you've gone through for the past 24 years, 25 years is something that most people can't even imagine. So really quick, so kudos to you. Really quick, I have a couple questions in the chat though, Mark. People want to ask you a couple things.
Yeah, and I want to tell you about before we go what they're doing now.
Well,
So
all right, so
what are the questions?
Let me get to the questions, and then we're down under 10 minutes, man. All right. So the first question is, how did you, Troy and Andrew handle the doctor's COVID and quarantine?
All right, so this is perfect.
Going
to segue into.
Are there increased risks for Troy and Andrew? Having the DMD.
You know what? At first, we thought that there were increased risks, and then we started to realize after talking to the doctors and consulting with them, and keeping a close eye on them, is that they're on high doses of steroids, which helps treat their illness, and excuse me, I think it helped build up some sort of maybe an immune response or something. So they, knock on wood, they've been good. Prior to COVID, when everything was happening, I actually saw you. We had a big benefit for them, for Team USA, and then the news started to break and everything.
Was that the one?
And right when that was
that the one in Whitman?
The
one that,
yeah,
that was awesome, by the way. Awesome, but go on.
Thank you. So right when that was happening, they were hitting another milestone in their life. Now, Troy and Andrew and their buddy Mark, who they live with, check a lot of boxes in life, and they had just signed a lease to live in an apartment by themselves independently over in Bridgewater. And so I helped them get the apartment, and then they got, we lined up staff, PCAs, personal care attendants that help care for them, because they're 25 years old, 24, turning 25, they want to live life. They don't want to be stuck home with their parents. What 25-year-old does, so I helped assist them in getting an apartment. And right when they were ready to move in, the bleep hit the fan, and my wife, being a frontline nurse, nobody knew what was going on. So I packed my bags and I moved in with them for the first 4 months in their apartment. I left my home. My wife was working around the clock. Mark, their roommate, hadn't yet moved in. He was delayed moving in. And I stayed with them and tended to them 24/7, two disabled boys, not knowing what was going to happen, thinking that we were going to die. It was tough. And then come June, they basically threw me out. Said, the warm weather was coming, the numbers were going down. They're like, wants to finally move in. We want to have our own place. Get the hell out of here. And they've been living admirably ever since, independently. People that watch my films will see they drive, they work, they do a lot of different things. It comes with assistant, it comes with help, it comes with teamwork and effort, but there's people that are willing to put that time in. And Troy and Andrew specifically, and their roommate Mark, they learn how to work with people and let people help them, and because they know that's going to help them through their life.
Well, Mark, that's definitely a comprehensive answer there. So you certainly answered Heidi's question. So let's get to the last question here. The last question that I have for you is, if a part of the wheelchair breaks, can that be expensive? So talk about that.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that there's like a maintenance aspect too, like a vehicle.
Yeah. Wheelchair maintenance is extremely difficult, and luckily we have a good team around us and good wheelchair repair people that will help us on the fly. And we do have, we're lucky we have backup wheelchairs if there's ever any issue. But it can be expensive. Insurance will sometimes fight you on it. I know when they first got their new fancy, they get a new wheelchair every 5 years. And I know when they first got when they went into their most recent chair, I believe, or it might have been a chair before that, the insurance company didn't want to pay for elevation, which we had to fight it. We had to appeal it because, how ridiculous is that? So
Mark, talk
young
about
man.
real quick. Mark, but so
what's that?
Some people might not know. What exactly do you mean by elevation? Really quick, and then jump back in.
Wheelchairs raise up. They raise up. So so you just think of being down on the ground, sitting in a chair, and you're looking at someone's belly button. Well, a wheelchair raises up. Now maybe you can look someone in the eyes. or you can eat at a high top counter. And to someone that's disabled, that means the world to them. They deserve to be able to raise their chair up and look someone in the eyes. And some of these chairs can go pretty damn high. So for an insurance company to deny that because they, for whatever reason, they're, I guess insensitive. It's all about the numbers at the end of the day. But we appealed it. We fought it, and these chairs can do crazy things now. But yeah, they're the more, it's like anything. The more fancy it gets, the more expensive it is to fix. But if you're going to be disabled, 2021 is the time to do it, because 20, 30 years ago, things weren't as the American Disabilities Act and everything that's come along has really helped the disabled community in the world. Treating them equal, which is important. I want to crack someone in the nose every time I see them even go near a handicapped spot if they're not handicapped. So, but I don't. I refrain.
Oh, that's good for everybody involved. Mark, we're down to under 4 minutes, so I know you want to get into that other story, but I don't know if we're going to make it. Can you?
I just think about the story. It's about them living independently. That's what I want to talk about.
All right, you got 3 minutes to talk about that and whatever projects that you got going on.
Talked about it. So they're living independently, project-wise.
What do you got going on? What do you got coming up?
We have Comedy for Cause 5. That's now free. It's on wheelchairstrong.com. You can check that out. There's some great comics on it. It's something that I just kind of envisioned doing. Everyone was complaining that there's nothing to watch. Every time you log on to Facebook, it's like, what are you streaming tonight? So I'm like, you know what? Let me hire some well-known comics. Let's make it into an hour special. And the kids helped me edit it, put it together, and sort of proud of it. It's pretty cool. There's no paywall. It's free. If you watch it, you enjoy it, and you feel like you want to contribute something, then feel free and do that. Everything, little, small, doesn't matter. That's it. We got that going on. And then
Mark, where do they go to donate? Is it what I have on the screen here? Wheelchairstrong.com?
Wheelchairstrong.com, and there's a link right on there. I think we're itching maybe in the fall to try to actually get back to having an event where people can, commingle again and like we used to. So we've run some 80s nights. Maybe we'll do, I'm told I'm too stuck in the 80s, so maybe I'll go even back a decade to the 70s just to piss people off. So maybe we'll do a 70s night. So yeah, we're all about having fun, and every time we run an event, my kids are there. They have a little t-shirt business on the side. They're selling t-shirts. They're having fun. They're interacting, and again, it's about ability. It's not about a disability. It's about living life, and tomorrow's not promised to any of us. So why not, especially them, live it to the fullest today.
Mark, if somebody wants to order a t-shirt from them, how can they get in touch with Troy and Andrew to do that?
I think there's a link on the wheelchairstrong.com website, or just hit me up on there. There's an address, and I'll get you some gear. They're moving and shaking so much I can't keep track of them. They got a different company every week. Selling something. So I don't. Go. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Go to wheelchairstrong.com and connect with me. I'm a very accessible person. I'll answer all of you as quick as I can, because I'm type A, as you say.
Yeah, just a little bit. Mark, we're down to the wire here, man. Thank you so much for taking time out to bring some awareness to what's going on with your sons, to the battle you're fighting every day. You're fighting the good fight, folks. Take a look at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to donate or get more information, visit wheelchairstrong.com. Ask for Mark. This is the man that'll grease the wheels, and he will get you whatever you need from his wonderful sons, Troy and Andrew. So, Mark, again, thanks again. Hopefully, I will see you hopefully next week. Those you may not know, I'm a little under the weather, and I cannot be there with my brothers in the morning. But I miss you guys, and I hope to see you soon. So, on that note, I just want to thank everybody again. Mark just said thanks for having him, and thank everybody for taking time. Please like, share, and subscribe to Supply the Why so we can get more of these wonderful stories out there and we can bring more awareness to everything that's going on in the world. So for everybody, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you again next week with another episode of Difficult Conversations. And as always, remember, #Supply the Why. Good night, everybody.